gentlemen, referee Celestino Ruiz steps in and stops this bout with an official time of 2 minutes, 42 seconds of the 12th and final round. Declaring the winner by way of technical knockout, still the undefeated WBO welterweight champion of the world, living Omaha, Nebraska, Terrence Bud Crawford.
What's up, boxing fan? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic: history-making two-division undisputed championship at stake in Crawford versus Spence fight. Also, is Swawn Porter right that Bud Crawford will stop Errol Spence? Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the money for minutes, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, on the block with the pole, This is the life that I chose, on the block with the pole, That life for riches, That life for riches, Pretty bitch, show me titties, And I got the glazzy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Is the Spence you fought last September at Staples, would that guy beat Crawford, or from what you know?
That guy was very good.
Mm-hmm.
He was good to the point where the last round, we came in, we touched gloves. Normally it just touch gloves and you fight, but I touched gloves with him and I said, good shit, boy, because the work was that good and the night was that good and that competitive, and I wanted it, and I could tell that he wanted it too. Does that fighter beat Terrence Crawford? That fighter was strong. That fighter was very good. I saw some holes. I saw that I was a step ahead of him a majority of that fight. And with saying that, no, I don't think that fighter can beat Terrence Crawford. But I've already said that in a match, I don't think Errol Spence could beat Terrence Crawford. I think that Terrence wins that fight. I think he's got more in his arsenal.
All right, boxing fans, you heard it again. Straight from Showtime, Swawn Porter's mouth. Okay, now we all know that Showtime is one of the top elite boxers at the 147-pound limit, and he has fought basically everybody. As a matter of fact, Swawn Porter's record is more extensive than even Errol Spence. Okay, I mean, really, if you look at the records, Errol Spence, the main people he's basically fought is like Algeria, but elite, as far as elite fighters, it's basically only two fighters, and that's been Mikey Garcia and Swawn Porter. That's it basically. But Swawn Porter has fought almost everybody at welterweight. He has fought Danny Garcia. Okay, he fought Thurman. He fought Spence. Okay, he fought Book. So I mean, and many more. So Spence, Porter has a very extensive record at welterweight. He has fought. As a matter of fact, I would have to say he's probably the fighter at welterweight that has the most extensive record in terms of quality opponents he have fought. Okay, so when Showtime Swawn Porter speaks, people should listen. Now, Swawn Porter has came out and made that statement, and I haven't heard any pundits, LDBC or whatever. I haven't heard anybody talk about this. I don't understand why that is. I mean, that's a very important statement. I mean, to say something like that, really says a lot, because if Swawn Porter is saying that Errol Spence doesn't have enough tools, or he's saying that Crawford has more tools than Errol Spence, he has more tools in his toolbox, and that Errol Spence can't beat him, then what does it say about a fight between Swawn Porter and Terrence Crawford? Because Spence already beat Swawn Porter, and Swawn Porter is saying that Spence can't beat Crawford. So does it also mean that Swawn Porter thinks that he can't beat Crawford either? We don't know. but it's a very interesting, subject, and so, let's explore it and see what it's all about. We're gonna chop it up, okay? So, all right. So basically, Swawn Porter is saying that, and he said it on more than one occasion, there's no way that Errol Spence can beat Terence Crawford. Okay? Now, Swawn Porter is a professional boxer, like I said before. He has an extensive record, at 147 pounds, okay? And so when he's speaking, people should listen to what he says. Now, there's a lot of casual fans out there and so-called quote-unquote boxing pundits, out there talking about Terence Crawford's record. He isn't fighting anybody. Does he deserve a shot at Errol Spence? He needs to fight somebody first. All this ridiculous, silly talk from these so-called, boxing pundits. The main ones being like, the main decaf commentators being Fan Boxing, Blue Blood Sports, basically leading the pack with their narratives, what I call their nonsensical narratives, okay, about, boxing. Okay, they don't really know much about boxing. So they're out there talking about, Terence Crawford isn't fighting anybody, his record is not that good, he doesn't have anybody on his record, all this nonsense, basically. So, but here it is, Swawn Porter is saying that even with all that talk that these guys are doing out there, all this decaf commentators and fans out there talking about Terence Crawford's record, Swawn Porter is saying he doesn't think that Errol Spence can beat Terence Crawford. I mean, that's a big statement. But now these decaf commentators are talking about that. Okay, they just out there just pushing their narratives. I mean, that doesn't really make any sense. It's not really based on any reality. I mean, I don't know what I mean, at the end of the day, we all know it's probably, these guys are probably just, just pushing, not, particular narrative for, whatever reasons, whether it be economic, personal, ideological, or whatever, what I'm saying? So that's, basically what it's all about. Same shit as the old media, really, okay? I mean, these guys, claim that they're new media, but, shout out to real new media, like Aki TV, Punch Junk Boxing, Dante's Boxing Nation. These guys are out there doing real new media, okay? I mean, there's a lot more of them, I can't mention all of them, but, the guys I just mentioned are out there doing their thing, and, many more. But then you got these other guys out there, pushing narratives and, basically doing the same thing that old media was doing, for being basically prostitutes. Okay, so I mean, it is what it is. But back to this boxing. So we saw the fight between Porter and Spence, okay, and also the fight between Mikey Garcia and Spence, and a lot of people that saw that fight, and many people thought that Spence would knock out Mikey Garcia, okay. But that wasn't the case because, Mikey Garcia was coming up from lightweight, basically, or at maybe 140 because he was fighting at 140 before he actually moved up. So he was coming up from a lower weight class, though. And, with the reputation that Spence had, I will emphasize had, because he doesn't have the reputation anymore. The reputation he had as the beast or the bully, at the boogeyman at 147, he was expected to knock out little Mikey Garcia, but lo and behold, Mikey Garcia went the distance, and Spence couldn't knock him out. So after the fight, basically Spence, dominated the fight. He outboxed Mikey for the whole 12 rounds, but he tried to knock Mikey out, but he just couldn't do it. So after the fight, the Spence camp started pushing the narrative, like, because, a lot of people had to come down to earth in that fight against Mikey Garcia because they thought that Spence was going to totally destroy, Mikey Garcia. They thought that Spence was just going to walk Mikey down, and just knock him out. That's all they couldn't think about. That's all they was talking about. It was going to be a slaughter, this, that, the whole 9 yards. Okay, the fight wouldn't last 2 or 3 rounds, the whole thing. But anyway, that wasn't the case. Spence tried to knock Mikey out. He couldn't do it. The fight ended up going 12 rounds. So, that was the fullness of it. He outboxed Mikey, but the fight went the distance. So the narrative started being that, Spence just wanted to showcase his boxing. He wasn't trying to knock Mikey out. He was just in there showcasing his boxing. For me, I don't really understand what that really means, because is knocking someone out because you're boxing mean that you can't knock someone out? I don't understand that. Okay, so it doesn't make any sense, because, when we compare the Mikey Garcia fight against Spence to the Gamboa fight against Crawford, okay, we saw what happened. Crawford knocked Gamboa out. Okay, it was the same circumstances, but the only difference is that Gamboa was more of a killer than Mikey Garcia is. Okay, when he moved up to and fought Crawford, he was an undisputed guy terrorizing the lightweight division, people running out of his way. He was knocking people out all the way until he got to Crawford. Okay, and so we saw how Crawford dealt with him. He just knocked him out. But in the Mikey Garcia fight, and Spence, we saw that Spence could knock out Mikey Garcia. So that's that's a good comparison, and that's something that we should really look at when we comparing the way Crawford and Spence match up. So all right, so that was the Mikey Garcia fight. Now let's go to the Porter fight. So now in the Porter fight, Spence, again, in this fight, it was expected that Spence was going to just walk through Porter and knock him out. And not only was that expected, Spence himself said it. Okay, he said that he was going to knock Porter out, and he even he claimed that he's going to stop Porter. Okay, so and plus his fans, again, because of the narrative that they was pushing up in the Mikey Garcia fight about he was just showcasing his boxing skills, and and all the fans ran with that, and so they didn't really press him too much about the fact that he didn't knock out Mikey Garcia. They just ran with the he was showcasing his boxing skills. Okay, he was showcasing his boxing. So now in this fight, they know that Porter is a come forward guy. He's not Mikey Garcia. He's going to be coming forward. He's going to be pressing Spence. So they were saying, okay, this is going to be a different fight. And he's definitely going to knock out Porter now, because Porter's going to be coming in, rushing him, and he's going to have to knock him out. So this is what they expected. Okay, and so they had totally forgot about the humble end to the Mikey Garcia fight for Spence. He basically, from what I can see, underachieved in that fight, because he should have knocked out Mikey Garcia. But anyway, in the fight against Porter that was coming up now, people expected to knock Porter out, and he even said himself, "I'm going to knock Porter out. Okay, I'm going to stop Porter." You know what I mean? So, lo and behold, the fight happened. Before I even get to that, let's Spence and Porter was arguing, and Spence said, "Oh man, Porter, you ain't nothing, man. You every time you fight somebody, it's always a close fight. Okay, you fight everybody else a close fight. I'm gonna knock you out. So I'm gonna stop you." So anyway, that's what Spence said before the fight. So lo and behold, after the fight, which was the toughest fight of Spence's career, and not only was it the toughest fight of Spence's career, it was the closest fight of all the fights that Porter had. Porter fought Ugas, Porter fought Thurman, Porter fought Danny Garcia, okay? He fought Kell Brook, and all those guys fought Porter better than Spence did, than Errol Spence. All of them had a better fight against Porter than Errol Spence. Errol Spence barely won the fight against Porter. He almost lost, almost got knocked out. Took a brutal beating from Porter. Okay, it was a brutal fight. that was totally unnecessary as far as I can see, because I don't know why he fought in that way. I mean, I guess Porter didn't, wouldn't let him fight any other way. That's the only conclusion I can come to, because I don't see why you would want to fight in such a way and take someone's punishment, in that fight against Porter. So, so basically we see that, the estimation that we have of Spence in terms of his ability and his boogeyman status and the actual reality in his fight against his opponents don't really match, okay? But when we look at Crawford, okay, people say, oh, he's not fighting anybody because he makes his fights look so easy. And that's the part, he was just like, Floyd Mayweather. They say, oh, Floyd Mayweather, the fight. But Floyd Mayweather made the fight look easy. And so, Crawford makes his fight look easy. And so they say, oh, he's not fighting anybody because he knocks everybody out, or he makes the fight look easy, okay? So this is the reality of what's going on, okay? So, this is what the decals and the casual boxing fans and the decal commentators are missing, okay? Because, just to illustrate what I'm talking about, at 140 pounds, Terence Crawford took the title from Thomas Delorme on his way to becoming undisputed, right? Thomas Delorme just had a fight with Ugas, okay? But in the fight against Crawford, he got knocked out in the 6th round. The referee had to pull Crawford off of him. He saved him from Crawford. Crawford was beating him down, okay? Totally dismantled and destroyed him in 6 rounds. But Ugas went the distance with Thomas Delorme. Ugas went the distance with Porter, okay? And he went the distance with Delorme. Crawford knocked out Delorme. So this is the difference. This is how we can, gauge what's really going on. So all these casual fans out there talking foolishness, you can't really, and some of these commentators, these guys getting paid with super chat to talk nonsense. You can't really pay attention to what they're saying because they're just talking nonsense. They're not really talking boxing. They're just saying whatever they have to say to make some super chat money or to get a couple of dollars behind the scenes or whatever, however they're getting paid, you know what I mean? So this is what it is. So, this Crawford fight and Spence, this Crawford and Spence fight is a fight that we should be talking about, but they're talking about Gary Russell fighting Crawford. They're talking about Porter fighting Crawford. Crawford came. People have to understand what the situation is. While he was 140 pounds, Crawford called out all the champions at 147. Okay, they told him to go get a belt and then come see them. So he jumped up to 147 pounds, knocked out the 147 pound WBO champ, and the guy that beat Manny Pacquiao, and he became the champion. And so now he's the WBO champion. He goes to these guys that he had called out at 140 and said, hey, let's get it on. Nobody wants to fight him. Everybody's ducking. Everybody's running and shucking and jiving, okay, making excuses, okay? So this is the reality of what's really going on. Now you hear the fans talk about, oh, does he deserve a fight with Spence and all this nonsense? What are you talking about? What do you mean deserve a fight? Crawford is the 140-pound undisputed champ, okay? He moved up to 147 pounds as an undisputed champ at 140 pounds. He doesn't, it's not about whether he deserves a fight with Crawford, with Spence or any of those guys. It's whether or not they deserve a fight with him. Okay? He's the man. Because I'm going to tell you something. I thought, I was thinking that Errol Spence was the man at 140 pounds because he's unified. But, I think I made a mistake about that. I think really and truly, the real man, the real boogeyman, because that's the man everybody's ducking, the real boogeyman at 140 pounds is Terence Crawford. That's the reality. Okay? Because nobody wants to fight him. Okay? They're ducking him, and they're ducking him in plain sight. Okay? Even Errol Spence is ducking, out of his own mouth. He admits that he's ducking Errol Spence admits that he's ducking Terence Crawford. And if you don't believe me, you can listen to it for yourself. You can hear it, you can see it for yourself. These guys are ducking Crawford, Spence included, and Spence is blatantly ducking Crawford. Check this out and listen to what Spence is saying about fighting Crawford. Listen to it very carefully.
Is the Spence you fought last September at Staples with that?
Sure
I
it's
met
not
Al
Sam
Hammond.
Watts?
I met Al Hammond.
I know.
Personally.
So have I.
Can we get both of them in the ring? Can we get both of them in the ring? He said, I'm fighting Mikey. Then I might fight Swawn Porter, Keith Thurman.
So he didn't mention Terrence, huh?
He didn't.
The smartest thing you can do is to stay away from Terrence. That's the smartest thing.
You're a legendary promoter. I like that. You're a legendary promoter. I like that. I like that. You're the best in the business. I like that.
Been around this long.
You're a legendary promoter. I like that.
So he know fight.
I like that.
Hey.
End of 2019.
Hey,
Did you not say that?
all that.
Did you not say that? That's
This,
what your promoter
this
said.
is what I'm saying.
I read it all.
This
That's
is
what
what
your
I'm
promoter
saying.
said.
This is what I read it all too.
That's what your promoter
Terrence
said.
Crawford, wait till he get a belt. Yeah. He ain't did nothing in the welterweight today. When he get a belt, you want to go over there. Keith Thurman want to go over there, and now y'all want to say, oh, I ain't fought nobody, but I got a belt now, so why?
Okay. Swawn Porter got a belt too.
So now
Swawn Porter got a belt too. Swawn Porter. So why am I go to easy road and you knock Swawn Porter out? So why am I go to easy road and you knock Swawn Porter out? So why am I go to easy road and you knock Swawn Porter out? Why wouldn't I?
Look at this dude.
Why wouldn't I?
You a smart man.
So there it is, right out of Spence's own mouth. Why don't I take the easier road? Why don't I take the easier road and go and knock out Swawn Porter? Okay, that's what Errol Spence said when Crawford confronted him about fighting him. So I mean, there it is. I mean, what more can we say? Okay, from his own mouth. He's gonna fight Danny Garcia. He's gonna fight Porter. He's gonna fight Thurman. And so Crawford said to him, "Well, you didn't mention my name." No, they didn't. So they got plans that they got to make fights way down into the future, and Crawford is not in those plans. Okay, they want nothing to do with Crawford whatsoever, and they're telling you right there in plain sight, out in the broad daylight, they're ducking Crawford. They don't want nothing to do with Crawford. The fights that they have in the future plan, there's no Crawford in those plans whatsoever. Okay, he just made a list. He just told you, okay, the fight that they have coming up, and like Crawford asked him, so they didn't mention me, huh? He said no, they didn't. So it is what it is. Excuse me. So. There, we have it from, Spence's own mouth. He's ducking Terrence Crawford, and he has no, he's not embarrassed to say it. He's not ashamed of it. He's not, trying to hide it. He's telling it out in plain sight. Okay, so for all the, the Spence fans out there who talk about, Terrence Crawford this and Terrence Crawford that, there it is. This is why this narrative about Terrence Crawford and fight nobody, that's why they're pushing that narrative, because they're trying to make every excuse in the book not to fight Terrence Crawford. And if you think I'm lying, you just heard it from Spence's own mouth, right? You heard it from Spence. He said it, okay? From his own mouth, he heard it. But all right, so just so that you understand what's going on, let's hear the confirmation from his, from Derek James, his trainer, okay? Let's check this out.
Doesn't fight anyone. Should Earl give him a shot?
Who? What now?
He says if Crawford doesn't fight anyone, should Earl give him a shot?
Shot of what? I mean, he still got other guys he's gonna fight or whatever. I mean, his fight schedule may be planned out. You know what I'm saying? Like after this one, we got another big one. We want to get the 3 belts, whatever the case may be. But hey, listen, man, I think that fight will possibly happen. But I think that if you think about it like this, Errol can fight Keith Thurman, Swawn Porter. He can fight Pacquiao. He can fight Danny Garcia. He can fight Ugas. He can fight all these guys. So his legacy has nothing to do with fighting Terrence Crawford. It doesn't. But at the same time, that may happen.
Okay. We're going to stop it right there for a second and listen to what he just said, because he said a lot right there. Okay? Basically, he confirmed the schedule that doesn't include Crawford. Okay? He's talking about Ugas. He's talking about Thurman. I mean, what are you talking about Thurman for? Okay, why would you mention Thurman? I mean, Thurman is not even fighting, and it's doubtful whether or not he's going to even fight anymore. But they want to fight him before they fight Crawford. Are you serious? What is going on? I don't get that. Ugas. Okay, so so we see that when he mentioned Thurman, we see that Errol Spence want to fight, and Derek James as well, want to fight everybody but Crawford. Okay, this is what's going on, and we are seeing it. So it's bad enough when the fighter comes out and makes excuses and says that he doesn't want to fight the other guy because he wants him to take the easier road and fight Swawn Porter. Okay, and then go to fight Swawn Porter and almost get stopped by Porter. Took a brutal beating from Porter. That's one thing. Okay, but when his trainer comes out and starts pushing the same narrative now about, you gotta fight this guy, he got a big schedule ahead, blah blah this, blah blah that, this and that, anything but to fight. And I mean, and then the kicker for me, was when he said that, they wanna get the 3 belts. Okay, there's 4 belts, but he's saying that they want to get the 3 belts, and then, why would you say you just want to get the 3 belts? What about the belt that because he mentioned Manny Pacquiao when he said that we want to get the 3 belts, okay, and so Manny Pacquiao has a WBC belt, so Spence has 2 belts, and he needs either Manny Pacquiao or the WBO belt that Crawford has to get 3 belts, okay? And then he has to fight the next person, for the Undisputed. But Derek James is not saying that. He's saying they want to get the 3 belts, and then right after that, he says, this is the real kicker. He says, Errol Spence's legacy does not depend on him fighting Terence Crawford. Whoa. That's when I know that the duck was in full gear. The ducking is in full blast, okay? Because that's the silliest statement I ever heard from a trainer in the history of boxing, okay? And the reason for it is simple, okay? And let's chop it up and see why it's a silly statement, okay? And it proves that they're ducking Terence Crawford. We have heard Derek James say that Jamel Charlo wants to become undisputed at 154 pounds. But we haven't heard him say that about Spence. We haven't heard him say that, we know that the Lion Charlo wants to become undisputed at 154. But we haven't heard that from Spence. We haven't heard Derek James said that Spence wants to become undisputed 147. We haven't heard it, okay? And so when he says that Errol Spence's legacy does not depend on him fighting Crawford, that says it all right there. That tells you what's really going on, okay? Because in order for Errol Spence to become undisputed, he has to fight Terence Crawford, okay? That's the stakes. Okay, and the title of this show is History Making 2-Division Undisputed Championship at Stake in Crawford versus Spence fight. And those are the other stakes. So we have 2 different sets of stakes. This fight between Spence and Crawford is the biggest fight in the history of boxing, for the most legacy ever in the history of boxing. This is what's at stake here in this fight. And you hear Derek James talk about Terence Crawford and fighting Errol Spence fighting Terence Crawford. His legacy doesn't depend on him fighting Terence Crawford. We're talking about the biggest fight in the history of boxing between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, because again, if Errol Spence beats Manny Pacquiao, and which most people think he would beat Manny Pacquiao, or if he beats Manny Pacquiao and then he fights Crawford, that fight, or if Crawford beats Manny Pacquiao and then fights Spence, Okay, that fight will be a fight between a former undisputed at 140 in one division at 140 and the 147 undisputed. Okay, because if Spence wins, he become undisputed at 147 pound, and if Crawford wins, he becomes undisputed at 147 pounds, and now he would be two-time, two division undisputed champ, which is unprecedented and never has happened in the history of boxing. Okay, this is what's at stake in the fight between Crawford and Spence. And you hear Derrick James talking nonsense, and you hear people talk about Crawford don't sell and the fight not gonna sell and this, that, and the other, and talk about the fight between Porter and the rematch between Porter and Spence is bigger than Crawford versus Spence. This is total bullshit, total nonsense. Okay, because we know what's at stake between Crawford and Spence if they fight. Okay, we're talking about Spence can become undisputed if he beats Crawford. Crawford can become two-time undisputed if he beats Spence. Okay, unprecedented, never happened before. This is what's at stake in those when those two fight. And people talking about Porter Spence rematch is bigger. So these people are lying. They're talking foolishness. There's no way. Okay, the Crawford-Spence fight is the biggest fight in the history of boxing for the most stakes. This is what the reality of all of this is. Okay, but you hear these clowns talking about, oh, it does. Let's finish and listen to this tape. This video of what Derrick James was saying. Let's listen to it. All right, check this out.
Doesn't fight anyone. Should Earl give him a shot?
Who? What now?
He says if Crawford doesn't fight anyone, should Earl give him a shot?
Shot of what? I mean, he still got other guys he's gonna fight or whatever. I mean, his fight schedule may be planned out. You know what I'm saying? Like after this one, we got another big one. You want to get the 3 belts, whatever the case may be. But hey, listen, man, I think that fight will possibly happen. But I think that if you think about it like this, Errol can fight Keith Thurman, Swawn Porter. He can fight Pacquiao. He can fight Danny Garcia. He can fight Ugas. He can fight all these guys. So his legacy has nothing to do with fighting Terrence Crawford. It doesn't. But at the same time, that may happen. I mean, to be honest, I hope it does happen because I think that we'll get to prove, we already know. To me, he's already the best. But if they want to put him in there, and see what he can do, and we'll see what he can do. But he has, he's ranked number one contender is Swawn Porter. So if you think about it, he has to, I think, possibly eventually fight Swawn Porter.
What's your take on? I mean, now I'm gonna tell you this, Derrick. A lot of brothers, a lot of these dudes, they don't like that shit. They go, oh man, you want to fight Crawford?
All right. So you heard that. Let's hear a little more, from Derrick James, and let's see, how they're setting the stage to try and duck Crawford. All right, let's check this out.
Yeah, and that's for real. So your people talk about put it like this, because we're not gonna put the business aspect in it because the business is always there. But if people want to hear me talk about the fight or whatever, okay, but you can't get a cat who can't sell. That makes sense. Doesn't add up. The business aspect don't add up. But I think that if he beats Swawn Porter, hell yeah, then people gonna be willing to see him fight because he's fighting somebody. Cause we can't trust. Think about this. Everybody fought. Those times he fought on pay-per-view, right? People went to go. We thought he was gonna fight. Nobody bought the fight. Like nobody bought the fight.
Okay,
So
okay.
people
Let,
can
let
say,
me, let me get right here, cause see now you stepping in the brother. This we in here now. Now,
yeah,
do you think him fighting Kell Brook makes him worthy to get a shot at Earl? Is
nah,
the business right?
because he's fighting the British. Put it like this, it was from a. Cause think about this, he don't have to from beating him beating Kell Brook. He don't have to beat Kell Brook to deserve a fight for Errol Spence, right? But what happens is to be able to sell a fight with Errol Spence, he got to beat somebody other than Kell Brook. Kell Brook British. People ain't watching that.
I mean, that's what I was trying to get. Is he gonna sell? Would that be the fight for him to sell to get in position to fight Earl? That was the better question. You said he
I
he
mean,
British.
I think that people. I don't think people gonna really really watch that. I think that him fighting Swawn Porter was put it like this, from a fan's perspective, Swawn Porter's bigger than he is because he's been in bigger fights. Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia. If you look at his numbers and the fans the tickets that have been sold from the fights that he participated in, right? He has a bigger base. So I think that this will bring the people who don't know him, and that's the big deal. I mean, I think that you sell it and people sell it, man, you don't have a choice. I think the Kell Brook fight it's a good fight. Great fight, phenomenal fight. I think that the fan base, I mean, they'll be like, I don't know I don't know how they will feel about it. And you know what's funny is that people say, well, you hating on him or something. I mean, because I think he even said that. Somebody said that. I'm not hating on him.
No,
I hadn't said one.
he said that shit.
I hadn't said one thing bad about him. I just said the truth. I mean, like, listen, the truth. I haven't said he can't fight again. I never said that. I listen. To say that is to be cruel, to be ugly, and it's a lot. So he can fight, but when people say, well, the business aspect is the excuse. Well, you lose $20 million. All right, you get your $20 million and you throw it down the toilet. Because I think about this: if you have a fighter with no fan base, but he has a guaranteed purse, so every time you pay him $3 million, he don't bring $3 million into the gate. So you just putting on the fight just to put on the fight.
Okay, so there it is. So we heard all the excuses. Okay, they're setting the stage to try and duck Crawford. Okay, that's basically what's going on, and they're talking all this nonsense about Porter is bigger than Crawford. He has a bigger fan base. Yeah, but you can say that if you want to. But what, does Porter have a title? No. Does Spence fighting Porter in a rematch get him any closer to becoming undisputed? No. Okay? So the road to undisputed for Spence is through Terence Crawford. You can't avoid it, Derek James. So I don't understand this thing about not wanting to fight Crawford because it doesn't sell or what the hell has it got to do with anything? I mean, at the end of the day, that's nonsense that it's not going to sell, because I just explained to you what the stakes are, okay, in this fight. It's the biggest stakes in the history of boxing, okay? This is a historic fight, the undisputed in both weight divisions. Never before in the history of boxing has a fight like this happened, and this will be the biggest fight in the history of boxing. You're looking at $100 to $300 million boxing match, okay, when it's all said and done. That's how big this is. But you're talking about fighting Thurman. I mean, what you're doing everything in your power to throw water on on the fight between Spence and Crawford, when you have to fight Crawford to become undisputed. Okay, I mean, I heard that Manny Pacquiao is out there talking about, we need the best to fight the best. Maybe he's trying to tell Spence that he needs to fight Crawford instead of wasting his time fighting all these other guys so that they can unify, okay? Because I'm sure Manny want to unify because, you know, Manny Pacquiao is in the mix as well. So here it is. If, say, Spence and Crawford fight, okay, and then Manny, and then you say Spence, you know, whoever wins, Manny Pacquiao is going to fight them to become undisputed, okay? So, I mean, 8-time division champion, and now he become undisputed, okay, at 147 pounds. I mean, that would be huge. So there are huge stakes that, you know, there's huge paydays at stakes in the fight between Crawford and Spence, okay, or between Manny and Crawford, okay, or between Spence and Manny, because at the end of the day, the road to the undisputed goes through Terence Crawford. There's no way to avoid that, okay, whether it's Manny that fights him or whether it's Spence that fights him for it, okay, either one. So this is what's at stake. And we hear Derek James talking all this nonsense about money, about there's no money and this and that, and you know, you lose $20 million, you talking about, oh, people that say that I'm using the business as an excuse, you know, you throw away $20 million. What the hell are you talking about, man? It's clear as day, okay, with everything at stake that I just mentioned, that Errol Spence wants no part of Terence Crawford, okay? And we see that Derek James is coming out with the same talking points, making the same excuses as Errol Spence, basically. So when you see the manager, I mean, not the manager, but the trainer coming out and making excuses for the fighter as well. Not just the fighter making excuses, but his manager is coming out and making excuses about ducking. So, I mean, you know, that says it all for me. I mean, they don't want Crawford, and we can see that they don't want Crawford, even with all the big money that's at stake, okay? I mean, you're going to waste your time taking a chance of losing against guys like Danny Garcia and these other guys, you know, instead of just, I mean, if you believe that Crawford is not all that and he's not up to par and this and that and, you know, he's not as good as Spence, then why wouldn't you just go over there and snatch the belt away from him? He's asking for you to come and take it. It's not like, you know, Crawford is not like Manny Pacquiao, you know, trying to stay away from you. He's actually asking you to come and get the belt. He's saying, come and take the belt. Come and take it, Spence. Here it is. Take it from me, please. Come and take the belt from me, please. And you don't want to go and get it? You talking about you want to fight Thurman? You want to fight Ugas? What? That's some crazy shit, okay? So I don't get it. So when people out there talk about Spence the boogeyman at 147, man, you got to look at the facts, bro. Okay, I just laid out the facts for you. And again, we heard it from Spence's own mouth. So, you know, I'm not just talking, okay? We heard it from his own mouth. He said it himself, okay? So it is what it is, okay? And then we heard it from his manager's mouth. So they're doing everything in their power to, you know, to basically duck Crawford. And I can understand why, because, you know, Crawford, I mean, when you look at the way he fights, you know, look at the speed, the power, the movement, okay? I mean, you know, just imagine if Crawford connected with Spence as much times as Porter did in the fight. Even half as much, and the fight wouldn't last 12 rounds, okay? Everybody knows that, okay? And you trying to tell me, we already know that Crawford is the most accurate puncher in the business, okay? So can you imagine him fighting Spence? What would happen if Porter, okay, was able to land so many punches on Spence? Can you imagine what Crawford would do to Spence? This is what people got to understand, okay? And we heard what Crawford said. We heard what Porter said about Spence fighting Crawford. He doesn't think that Spence can beat Crawford, okay? Porter doesn't believe that, okay? He doesn't believe that Spence can beat Crawford, okay? And we saw how many punches Porter landed on Spence. And he told you that he was ahead of Spence for majority of the fight, and he was. Okay, so he saw something. Okay, so he knows what's going on. So we already know. I mean, when we look at you know, when you look at the way Crawford fight, you know, the speed, the power, like I said before, if he land a quarter, not even half, a quarter of the punches that Porter land on Spence, it's over, okay? It's over for Spence. So, you know, based on all of that, I'm going to have to say you know, and everything that's going on. The way I see Spence and, you know, Derek James is training, ducking and shucking and jabbing and sliding around the corners and trying to avoid, doing everything in their power to try to delegitimize Crawford and his record and try to duck him and talk about they want 3 belts and then talking about their legacy doesn't depend on fighting Crawford. Then we all know and see that this is just ducking. I mean, it's clear. I'm sorry, people. It is what it is. Spence want no part of Terence Crawford. He's ducking, and it's clear as day, and it came from his own mouth, okay? From his own mouth.
You sure
I
it's
met
not
Al
Sam
Haines.
Watts?
I met Al Haines.
I know.
Personally.
So have I.
What did he say?
Can we get both of them in the ring? Can we get both of them in the ring?
He said, I'm fighting Mikey. Then I might fight Swawn Porter, Keith Thurman.
So he didn't
Pacquiao.
mention Terrence, huh?
He didn't.
The smartest thing you can do is to stay away from Terrence. That's the smartest thing.
You're a legendary promoter. I like that. You're a legendary promoter. I like that. I like that. You're best in the business. I like
He been
that.
around this long.
You're a legendary promoter. I like that.
So
I
he
like
know
that.
fight.
I like that.
Hey.
End of 2019.
Hey,
Did you not
fuck
say that?
all that.
Did you not say that? That's
this,
what your promoter
This
said.
is what I'm saying.
I read it all.
This
That's
is
what
what I'm
your promoter
saying.
said.
This is what I read it all too.
That's what your promoter
Terrence
said.
Crawford, wait till he get a belt.
Yeah.
He ain't did nothing in the welterweight today.
You
When he
have
get
did
a belt,
nothing.
when he
You
get a
have
belt,
did
you want
You
to
have
go
did
over
nothing.
there. Keith Thurman want to go over there, and now y'all want to say, "Oh, I ain't fought nobody," but I got a belt now, so why?
Okay. Swawn Porter got a belt too.
So now
Swawn
this-
Porter got a belt too. Swawn Porter. So why am I go to the easy road and knock Swawn Porter out? So why am I go to the easy road and knock Swawn Porter out? So why am I go to the easy road and knock Swawn Porter out? Why wouldn't I?
Look at this dude.
Why wouldn't I?
You a smart man.
So there it is, friends. Boxing fans. That's all I have. This is TBE. I'm out.